Hey there, welcome to a new album review, and today, yeah, you probably guessed it, another YouTube recommendation, and this one wasn't necessarily the full album, but more a song, and it was Aether Realm, The Sun, the Moon, the Star, which comes from the album Tarot, which I was like, okay, cool, let's listen to it. Again, I thought this was sort of a post-rock, post-metal thing. Turns out that, look, the best way I can describe this album is, imagine if Dragon Force, instead of making power metal, made like death metal with like Viking metal inspiration. Yeah, I know it sounds like really bizarre, but that's basically what this fucking album is. It's literally like just that. To the point where one of the songs, King of Cups, I think, as a feature from the singer of Hailstorm, which if you know anything about Hailstorm, you probably know they're not a very serious band, they're a pirate metal band. So yeah, this entire album was basically like death metal, very like growly vocals, like fucking blast beats, and then it's just like the most random fucking like Viking, we're fucking dining type thing vibe. It was honestly a combination that I wasn't expecting, but it was a combination that also, to me, in my humble opinion, I just don't think it worked all that well. Like, I see where it's coming from, it's definitely interesting, there's definitely like a level of creativity in it, for sure, but I also think it doesn't really work, because it's kind of hard to be invested in songs that, to me at least, look, the way I'm picturing this is, I was sitting there and I was expecting something a little bit more like proggy, especially a little more like perhaps dark and whatnot, especially the album art inspiration sort of really did sort of call for that, right? Or at least like that's the impression I got, and then I listened to the album and just like, it feels too happy, but it's like everything is just tuned down. Again, like I literally like I think I had that thought at the middle of the album about like Dragon Force, or this band being like Dragon Force death metal with like Viking metal inspirations, and I just could not like unsee the fucking similarities. Obviously, unlike Dragon Force, they definitely did play like, I guess, less solos and stuff like that, and definitely, again, like, they're not a power metal band, they're a death metal band, but and you can definitely feel that. You can definitely feel that in the singing, especially in the drumming. The drumming is very death metal. But it's like, then you contrast that with sort of this epic-go-lucky, oh yeah, like fucking we're like drinking and shit, and like, you know what I mean? It's very like, it's sort of this medieval vibe, but it's this sort of fucking around and serious medieval vibe to a certain degree. Like, again, like, pretty much ever since like the fourth song, the King of Cups, with the fucking Hailstorm singer, I just like, up until that point I was like trying to figure out, okay, where the fuck does this album fit, how does it make me feel and whatnot. From that point onward I was just like, yeah, I mean, I guess they're just having fun, but yeah, it's kind of like inconsequential music. I don't know, it was way harder for me to like, I guess, take the narrative as seriously post that point. And I mean, it's already hard for me to take the narrative seriously, because the fucking reality is a lot of the vocals are not good, I would say. I mean, they're good in the sense of like, they're good for death metal for sure, but I can't understand jack shit of what they're saying, and then it's like, it's this growly, raspy type fucking voice, like a fucking demon is like fucking eating your feet and you're trying to like shrug them off while trying to fucking sing, you know what I mean? It's just very like, I never enjoyed death metal like singing, so that's more of a me thing, I guess. But yeah, like death metal singing with then, this sort of fucking Viking medieval metal type vibe just did not combine well, in my opinion. It just did not combine well whatsoever, right? It was just very, I don't know, I felt that the album was very like unserious as a whole, and that just didn't do a service to the sort of, atmosphere that they were going for the like the death metal. Like, look, I think death metal with like a little bit of a, medieval goth type inspired, elements, I definitely think it can work. At the end of the day, like I did review Apocalypse Orchestra, which were mostly medieval metal straight up, but there you go, like it's a metal band that has, you know, medieval elements in it, and as a result creates this very cool environment of medieval metal, right? Of like, you know, medieval times but through metal, right? Whereas here it was very hard to sort of take it seriously because again, like a lot of the look again, I think it's a good subversion of expectations, and I'm not saying that it sounds bad. I'm just saying it's kind of hard to sort of like take the album seriously as a result, especially when like you get to the last two songs, Temperance and The Sun, the Moon, the Star, right? Those are the last two songs, which by the way, the Sun, the Moon and the Star is like a 19-minute song, so a good one. But those two songs are definitely a little bit more, especially Temperance is a little bit more on the environmental side, like on the ambient side, right? And it definitely like seems to like take itself more seriously. And same thing with the last song, The Sun, the Moon and the Star, which is, you know, you have like this song that sort of goes through a little story type thing, where you definitely have a lot of different faces for what the album shows, and a lot of different, you know, like the song sometimes changes sort of the instruments that are playing, it gets toned down, it sort of gets brought up again, it gets, you know, building and whatnot, you know, like I don't think as far as prog metal songs go, I don't think its length necessarily justifies or is justified. Like I think that in prog metal oftentimes with long songs, I think that, you know, people assume they're impressive, but at the same time what I find is a lot of bands tend to fall into this pitfall of wanting to have a long song, and then what ends happening is the reality is that there are like 4 or 5 different songs just together in the same one, right? And to a certain degree, this song did feel like that. I think that they could have been like 3, 4 separate different songs. I think it would have been fine, but still, you know, like I do feel that it's perhaps a little bit more, I guess, on the serious side, you know, like not as much as perhaps I would have wanted, but it's definitely more comparatively speaking to the rest of the album, right? Like I think that an album like this, though, I think it should just deserve a more like serious approach, and if not like serious approach, at least like a more dark tone to it all, right? You're already doing sort of this death metal thing, right? So, you know, and you're already combining it with like this Viking, you know, fucking, again, like medieval type metal thing. I think you could like use that but still have a dark tone to it, which is sort of like what Apocalypse Orchestra did, and to me they just sounded way better, way better. Like again, I appreciate this version of expectation, the song, you know, the songs sounded nice and whatnot, but it's just such a clash hearing death metal vocals, death metal drums, and then just fucking hearing that the singer from Hailstorm talking about how, or singing about how, you know, we're gonna drink, you know, and it's just like, bro, what the fuck are you doing here? Get the fuck out of the song, you know what I mean? Right, so it's like, and even then, like even the main vocalist, sometimes like the demeanor in the song just sort of screamed, you know, sure, this is death metal technique, but I'm sitting here just fucking around like a circus, you know? So, yeah, as a whole, perhaps not my favorite. Like, sonically speaking, really good, but definitely like in terms of the narrative, I guess the experience is just not my favorite whatsoever. Again, with that being said, it sounded nice, it just, I don't know, it left a lot to be desired, you know. It's sort of like buying a video game with like a really cool video game cover, you know, like when you would buy them physically, they would have like this really cool like cover, you know, and then you would like fucking play the video game and realize, wait, what the fuck, this is kind of like myth, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, it's a fine game, but it's definitely not as cool as, you know, the fucking cover made it seem. And here, I sort of feel the same thing, looking at the album cover, looking at the name of the songs and everything, right, especially looking at a song that has 19 minutes, you know, I was expecting, you know, okay, sure, I was perhaps not expecting death metal, but even if it was death metal, you know, like a more, you know, measured, even edgy style and whatnot, right? And I think it would have been just much better. Instead, I get this sort of almost goofy take on it that just, in personal opinion, did not work. So in terms of my vibe meter, currently I'm feeling like a 6 out of 10. I think it's definitely higher than 6 out of 10, but I'm feeling like that at the moment because again I kind of feel disappointed to a certain degree. So I have to make my disappointment feel heard. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new album review.